The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be of Métis, First Nation, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here today in Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people and the land. Thank you. Next up, we have three proclamations tonight, which I will read now. First proclamation, Family Violence Prevention Month in November. Whereas there are many people in Alberta who experience family violence, and whereas the effects of family violence may be carried on from generation to generation, and whereas all Albertans have a role to play in preventing family violence, and whereas the City of Beaumont Family and Community Support Services works to prevent family violence through education awareness, and whereas the Beaumont City Council calls upon citizens of Beaumont to reach out, speak out against family violence, and to make a difference by creating a culture of support for those affected by family violence. And whereas the Beaumont City Council calls upon all Albertans to help make our province violence-free in 2020 and beyond. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Stephen Van Nieuwkerk, do hereby proclaim November 2023 Family Violence Prevention Month. And the second proclamation this evening is for World Town Planning Day, November 8th, 2023. Whereas, since its inception in 1949, World Town Planning Day is celebrated in more than 30 countries around the world. And whereas World Town Planning Day highlights the valuable contributions that sound planning makes to the quality of our communities, and whereas Beaumont's vision to be a vibrant, inclusive, livable, and sustainable community requires deliberate, wise, and strategic planning decisions, and whereas World Town Planning Day also serves as a reminder of the importance for all citizens to engage in building stronger, smarter communities, and whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes the valuable contributions of urban planners in planning and development and their commitment to our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Stephen Van Nieuwkerk, do hereby proclaim November 8th, 2023 as World Town Planning Day. And the third proclamation for Métis Week, November 12th to 18th, 2023. Whereas Métis Week is an opportunity to commemorate the legacy of Louis Riel and recognize the sacrifices of all Métis people who continue to strive towards rights and recognition as a distinct nation. And whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes the important role that Métis people have played in the community and the contributions they continue to make to the city. And whereas Beaumont's vision to be a vibrant, inclusive, diverse, livable, and sustainable community requires the community to commit to a strong relationship with Métis people and communities across the province. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Stephen Van Nieuwkerk, do hereby proclaim November 12th to 18th, 2023 as Métis Week. Thank you. Next up will be the adoption of the agenda. Just looking to administration to see if there are any changes to the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Administration has two amendments to the agenda this evening. Addition of attachment 1 to item 6.2, 2023-2025 Deputy Mayor schedule, and addition of attachment 1 to the 6.3, 2023 and 2024 council boards and committees appointments.
Thank you. Is there a member of council willing to move the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Barnhart.
Yes, I'd be pleased to make the motion that the October 30th, 2023 council agenda be adopted as amended. Addition of attachment 1 to item 6.2, 2023 to 2025 deputy mayor's schedule and addition of attachment 1 to item 6.3, 2023-2024 council boards and committees.
Thank you. The motion has been made. Any debate on the motion? Seeing none, please vote accordingly. Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Next on the agenda tonight is the open forum. Administration, do we have?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, our
We're good.
speaker system was having a little glitch there, but I fixed
was.
it and we're good to go. We do not have any open forum speakers this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Administration, would you be able to present the motion for the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's quite a few items, so I'm going to be reading for a little bit here. That council approve the following agenda items without debate. That council accept the minutes for the September 26, 2023 regular council meeting as presented. The council accept the minutes of the September 19, 2023 special council meeting minutes as presented. The council accept the minutes of the October 17, 2023 special council meeting as presented. That the 2024 Council and Committee of the Whole meeting schedule as set out in attachment 1 of the October 30th, 2023 legal and legislative report be approved. That the 2024 budget deliberations and action plan be developed based on the needs assessment results be provided to council for consideration and potential next step be changed from November 28th, 2023 to revised date of end of first quarter of 2024. And the Councilor Advisory Committee bylaws, that bylaw 103.9-23 Advisory Committee bylaw be given first reading. The bylaw 103.23 be given second reading. Bylaw 103.923 be considered for third reading, and that bylaw 103.9-23 be given third reading. Bylaw 103.7-23 Grants Funding Advisory Committee bylaw be given first reading. 103.7-23 be given second reading. 103.7-23 be considered for third reading. 103.7 be given bylaw given -23 be given third reading. The bylaw 1038-23 Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee bylaw be given first reading. 1038-23 be given second reading. 103.8-23 be considered for third reading, and 103.8-23 be given third reading, and that bylaw 103.6-23 Advisory Committee be given first reading, and bylaw 103.6-23 be given second reading, and 103.6-23 be considered for third reading, and 103.6-23 be given third reading, and that the October 30th, 2023 Regional Initiatives Update Report be received as information, and that the report remain private pursuant to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act under sections 21 and 24. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting that. Is there a member of council willing to move that motion, please? Your time to shine. Councillor Penrod.
Actually, just have a point of clarification. There's a small, what I think is just a typo in the minutes for the September 19th special meeting. Is it possible to correct that and then move forward with that still included, or do we need to pull it out?
I'll just look to clarification from administration.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If Councillor Penrod just wants to send that to me, I can just make the quick change.
Sure.
It's clerical.
Then I'll continue with the motion. Moving that council can. Moving that. Ready? Moving that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Regular council meeting minutes, September 26, 2023. special council meeting minutes, September 19th, 2023. Special council meeting minutes, October 17th, 2023, as amended. 2024 council and committee of the whole meeting schedule. Committee health needs assessment report for extension. Council advisory committee bylaws for second and third reading. Grants funding advisory committee bylaw for first reading. Second reading considered for third and third. Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee bylaw be given first reading. That bylaw, Youth Advisory Committee, bylaw 103623, Youth Advisory Committee be given first reading. And the regional dashboard update.
Yeah, that sounds good. And the regional dashboard update, that'll be just received as information. So any debate on the motion? Seeing none. Let's start the vote. And please vote accordingly. Thank you, and that moves unanimously. Looking for a member of council to move to adopt the minutes, please. Oh, sorry. Yes, that was done already. That brings us down to item next on the agenda here, moves all the way down after the consent items are looked after, down to 6.2, 2023 to 2025 deputy mayor schedule and administration. Who will be presenting that? Ms.
Thank you,
Winter,
Deputy Mayor. It's me again.
you're up.
With the conclusion of the 2023 by-election and the two new councillor positions being filled, council will need to amend the previously adopted 2021-2025 deputy mayor schedule. This evening, administration is looking for approval for the amended attachment 1 attached to the report, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any questions from members of council? Seeing none, is there a member of council willing to move the motion? Councillor McCook.
I move that the 2023-2025 deputy mayor schedule as set out on page 1 of the October 30th, 2023 Legal and Legislative Services report be approved.
Thank you very much. And I will start the vote. And that is moved unanimously. Thank you. And the next item, item 6.3, 2024 council board appointments. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Deputy. This report seeks council's approval for the appointment of councillors to various boards and committees. And this evening, administration is seeking approval for the proposed appointment of councillors as per attachment 1, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any questions from members of council on the 2024 council board appointments? Seeing none. I will ask for someone to make the motion that's presented in front of us, please. Councillor Natellenboss, you're up.
Perfect. Thank you. I move to pass the motion that the councillor appointments to boards and committees as set out in attachment 1 of the October 30th, 2023 Legal and Legislative Services report be approved for the terms set out therein, provided that the appointees continue to serve as councillors throughout the term of their appointment.
Thank you for moving that motion. Is there any debate or questions on that motion from any member of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along, we now find ourselves at item 6.4, the Utilities and Stormwater Management Master Plan. Administration, do we have our presenter available for that item?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. You're live.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm here today to present the Utilities and Stormwater Management Master Plan. The previous Utility Master Plan was completed in 2018, around the same time that annexation occurred. But since then, our city has grown and changed quite significantly. So the assumptions in the previous master plan were no longer valid and an update was required. Also, it is common for cities to update their master plans approximately every 5 years. So it was the right time for master plan update, and going forward, we intend to continue doing utility master plan updates every 5 years. This current master plan assessed our existing water, sanitary, and stormwater systems and provided recommendations for upgrades based on the city's current and future needs. The master plan took into account our expected population growth, and based on that, created a capital plan broken into 5-year timeline horizons. Also, stormwater analysis was included in this master plan, which was a new addition as a previous master plan did not include stormwater. Along with our consultant, WSP, many staff members from the infrastructure and planning departments were involved in this master plan and integral to ensuring that this master plan accurately reflects the needs of the city. Tonight here at council, we have myself, from the master plan team, we have myself, Trevor Moninka, our new long-range engineer, who will be overseeing the implementation of this master plan over the next 5 years. We have Aaron Lewicki, Director of Infrastructure, and we have Josh Maxwell from WSP, who will be presenting the rest of the presentation. So I will now hand it over to Josh, who is a project lead at WSP for this master plan, and he will be running you through a summary of all the findings of the master plan. Thank you.
Sounds good, Josh. Yeah, you can take a seat up here, and there's the remote for clicking through slides. Yeah, and if you hit the green button on there, then I will make your mic, on the microphone there. And then it's now red and you're live. And if you just move the microphone a little bit close to yourself and just up, it really helps the
Sure.
recordings, the people at home and all the crowd.
Sounds good. I have a voice that carries, so I'll calibrate myself. But
Over to you. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and Council, for having me here today. I'll skip the introduction. I think Poonam already covered that off. So we're going to go over the planning framework and then a summary of the water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. And we looked at it and the recommended projects that came out of that work. The master plan was fairly comprehensive. It covered a lot of details of the system. Really today, we're focusing on our assessment of the capacity of your system and any deficiencies that we may have observed and the recommended upgrades. And secondly, we're going to look at the capital projects that we are recommending to improve the existing system and support new growth within Beaumont. Thank you. So I don't plan to belabor planning aspects of the study much today because it wasn't really, we took your planning documents as an input. Main inputs were the municipal development plan and ASPs. You can see up here on the board, we have essentially two scenarios: Beaumont as it exists today in zonings, and then Beaumont as it will exist many years from now, beyond 30 years from now. Further, Beaumont's planning staff assisted us with breaking that down into a series of growth horizons here. So these are every 5 years, and you can see that the population extends as based upon an absorption rate. At the point of 2048, we just say that's two ultimate build outs. So it's one of the final phase is a big jump at the end. I'm gonna go in order of complexity here. So we'll do the hardest ones first, and then as we go on, it gets easier as we go forward here. So we're gonna start with water. So here's a little infographic, just kind of giving you some basics on your water system. So potable water system in Beaumont really has two jobs. It's first of all, to deliver drinking water to your homes and businesses. So drinking appliances, washing your dishes, that sort of thing. It also plays an integral role in fire protection. The water supply is we have fire hydrants throughout Beaumont, and that supply can be drawn upon in the event of a fire. It's important to understand that the water has to come from somewhere. In this case, Beaumont doesn't actually need to treat its own water and obtain it from on-site sources. It's actually provided through a commission. That's the Capital Region Southwest Water Services Commission. So that comes into Beaumont in what we refer to as a fill line. The next map shows an actual figures. You can see how it looks. But basically, that comes in as a steady trickle. And then you have reservoirs, and the job of the reservoirs is to absorb the daily peaks, as well as have volume available in reserve. Within those reservoirs is also a pump house, and the pump house, aptly named, pumps the water to the uses. You have two reservoirs, very well named, Maine and Vital. Good job being a French community. I love it. This will become important later. So the water flows into Maine directly, and then Maine distributes that water through the rest of the system and also feeds Vital. So basically what we have here is the Vital pump house is dependent upon Maine to be filled up basically in the evenings when it's not being drawn down. So in reality, it's a lot more complicated. So we've got 90 kilometers of water mains, the two pump houses, and there are about 600 fire hydrants. I don't think the laser pointer will work very well here, but you can see that the brown line on the west side of town there comes in. That's that commission fill line I talked about. You can see it comes in on the west side and then follows LeBlanc Canal down to 50th Ave and then over to the main reservoir and pump house. And then from there, it's a series of pipes branching out through the system. So a lot of the issues today center around the reservoirs and the pump houses. The first issue we ran into where there were some power supply deficiencies at main pump house. So the electrical system that's there, it's been in place for 30 years. There's been a series of pump upgrades since then. So first of all, it's not reliable anymore, and frankly needs to be replaced. Second of all, it's not sufficient right now to actually run all the pumps that are present in the pump house. So right now, actually, to run all the pumps during peak hour conditions in the summer, there's actually a backup generator that's kicking on a lot of days in the afternoon. That's not ideal. It's also noisy. I'm impressed your residents haven't complained about it. They've done well. So recommendation on that, we're going to make an upgrade of the electrical system at main pump house. Issue two, this is more of a growth item, the reservoir storage capacity. So I talked about we need to have water in that reservoir to manage those peaks. Beaumont's a growing community. Every additional person that comes to Beaumont, there is an associated additional volume of storage that those reservoirs need to contain. So at present, your reservoirs are well stored, are well sized. And in fact, actually, there's enough capacity for our first 5-year growth horizon. But at that point, we need to start looking at expansions. We looked at expansions at Vital and Maine. Vital is the one with the capacity, the room on the site to support expansion. So that is the one that we've identified as requiring expansion. So I've actually already kind of discussed this already. The only other item I'd add on the reservoir side is there is a third reservoir identified for Beaumont, referred to as the Northwest Reservoir and Pump House. I'm sure you'll come up with a more creative name when the time comes to build that. It's not required for 30 years. It's in the northwest end of Beaumont. So thank you. So of critical importance here, that fill line that I talked about that is currently only extended to Maine. Vital is basically currently maxed out. It is many days running dry due to basically the inability of the existing Beaumont water system to fill it during the night times, during the periods of low demand. So the first thing we're recommending here is the extension of that commission water line to the Vital pump house down 50th Avenue. And what that will do is will allow a steady supply of water to Vital and also to allow us to expand it in the future so that when, because currently if you were to build that expansion, you wouldn't actually be able to fill it the way the daytime drawdowns and nighttime fills balance out. Important to note here as well. So that fill line is owned by the commission. It's likely there are cost sharing opportunities with the commission. So our expectation here is that there will be the city administration will be engaging with the commission to determine what sort of cost share would be necessary or would be possible with that extension to fill line. Third issue with the water system, there are some pumping capacity constraints within Maine Pump House. So it does a great job meeting those day-to-day demands. But what occurs is those fire flows that I talked about. So fire flows are relatively high flow scenarios. Maine Pump House isn't really able to keep up with some of the higher risk scenarios that could occur. We tie higher risk scenarios with fires at institutional properties, commercial properties. Currently, it's not ideal, but it's acceptable at the moment because you have Vital, and Vital can pick up where Maine is not able to. But there's these constraints with Maine, like I talked about, not being able to fill fast enough currently. So it would be best if Maine had sufficient pumping capacity to satisfy all the scenarios that you would normally apply to it. A minor item tied to this as well, in some of the older areas, mainly Centerville and St. Vital, there's a standard hydrant spacing we now look for between hydrants. These older areas, not that anyone necessarily made a mistake back in the day, but just back in those days, they didn't really look at the spacing of the hydrants as closely. We're recommending that the neighborhood renewal program look at adding additional hydrants as required when you go in and do those street upgrades, just to bring the neighborhood up to modern standards. So recommended actions, some pump upgrades at Maine, and then ultimately for growth down the line, we're looking at 10 years in the future, we're going to be seeing some pump upgrades at Vital as well. Third issue with the water system is there are some inconsistent pressures in Beaumont within the potable water system. So Beaumont is, as named, on a hill. So there is elevation variation. At the top of the hill, we're going to be seeing lower pressures. At the bottom of this hill, you're going to be seeing higher pressures because the water system is more or less a constant pressure. What we're seeing is basically the green dots, which is sort of the highest elevations in Beaumont, mainly the kind of the Centerville area. We are seeing fairly low pressures. And currently what's happening is that's actually constraining some of the growth types that we are able to see in Centerville. There's a contingency where those if someone wanted to build, let's say, a high rise, they right now could not without installing a private booster station in the building. And then tied to that, many other places in Beaumont have relatively high pressures, in fact, higher than we would prefer to see in a water system. Currently, it's a rock and a hard place scenario. We really can't raise the pressures in the Centerville area without further raising the pressures in those other areas of Beaumont where there's high pressure. So we are going to be looking at the creation of a separate pressure zone. This isn't a simple thing, but the basic idea is that we are going to take the Centerville area and we're going to isolate that area of the water system through a series of valves. That water system is going to receive a higher pressure than the surrounding area. And that's going to allow us to actually lower the pressure in the rest of Beaumont, so those areas stop seeing those higher pressures. There is more work required on this. Retrofitting pressure zone boundaries into existing water systems isn't easy. You can see just looking at the boundaries, the rough boundaries of that zone there. There's a lot of streets and a lot of connected water mains that was considered as a connected system. This is currently not proposed in the immediate horizon because there's a further issue we have here in that when we establish this pressure zone, it also truncates our network, and that damages our ability to fight fires. Until we just have a few extra trunks constructed as part of development, we really can't action this. But in the near term, we are recommending a study to sort out the details and figure out exactly where that Centerville pressure zone boundary should be located. And that's the end of the water system. Over to wastewater. So the wastewater figure is less complicated, but still there are a lot of eccentricities to it. So after you're done using that pottled water I talked about, it's gonna go down the sink, go down the drain, and it's gonna go into your wastewater collection system. You through a partnership with what was formerly the Alberta Capital Region Wastewater Treatment Commission, now named Aero Utilities as of like 2 months ago. So you are basically releasing your water into that commission wastewater trunk. That is conveyed all the way to the Gold Bar wastewater treatment plant in the city of Edmonton, where it's treated and discharged to the North Saskatchewan River. So you think wastewater is simple, but it's got lots of its own issues. Much like the water system, we've got over 85 kilometers of water sewers. The Beaumont-owned infrastructure is basically essentially pipes. The commission-owned infrastructure it's kind of hard to see, but there's basically a trunk that runs paralleling a large chunk of LeBlanc Canal. That runs out into something called a set of storage sewers and something called the Beaumont Pump Station. That's all commission-owned infrastructure. We need to interact with the commission because it impacts your line, but it's actually not your infrastructure to own and operate. So the big issue with the water system that you should be aware of is this item called inflow and infiltration. So the wastewater system is intended to look after that water going down the drain, called that wastewater. Through various means, surface drainage and stormwater finds its way into that line as well. A certain amount of that is inevitable. It will always get in, and we design for that. We consider for a certain amount of that to get in. But what occurs in older age systems, there's a whole bunch, basically that number starts going up. We have issues on private property, aged weeping tile, poor lot grading increases the flow. There's cracked services, poor condition services, and there's also cracked and damaged public infrastructure such as pipes. You also can have cross connections occur where you accidentally cross connect the stormwater and wastewater systems. All of those things contribute to the wastewater system receiving more water than it was ever intended to. There are really two problems here. One, it overloads the pipe and actually can present a basement flooding risk to the houses attached to those flooding pipes. And secondly, it robs you of capacity for growth. So because you are now that inflow and infiltration is going into that line, now it's harder to plan and input new growth. Most relevant to this is actually the area to the south of Beaumont, referred to the Southlands ASP. That all drains through the primary spine of the Beaumont system. So within the core area of Beaumont, it's about a 200 hectare area. There is a significant amount of aged pipe. It's older clay tile pipe. It's approaching the end of its lifespan. It's cracking, and that's where we're seeing that increased I&I. There are kind of two places that are being impacted by that. One is the commission line, and there's really two main trunks sections that are becoming overloaded. And then there's also 3 areas within Beaumont proper where there are some overloaded trunks occurring. Finally, it's not shown properly on this figure, but on the north end of Beaumont, there is a sanitary main required to support development from Larev, which you'll see a better figure of later. So first of all, we're recommending something called inflow and infiltration mitigation. So we are looking to decrease the inflow and infiltration levels going into Beaumont sanitary sewers. There's a bunch of different points on that. I already listed the flooding risk and the constraints on development. The other factor to understand is that the commission is looking at instituting penalties for communities that are not controlling their INI, because it poses a flooding risk to them downstream, and then it also poses a treatment cost upon them. So that extra water goes to the treatment plant, and now they have to treat it. And back in the good old days, you could just let that spill over into the river, but we can't do that anymore. So we have a series of trunk upsizes or twinning projects. 2 of them are commissioned, and then 3 of them are within Beaumont. And that's it for wastewater. Stormwater will move through pretty fast. It's kind of least exciting of the bunch. So you have a lot of storm infrastructure still, 75 kilometers of storm sewer, 39 storm ponds, and then there's actually 1 underground storage tank in Centerville. Of the 3 systems, the stormwater, I would say overall was in the best condition. Generally, we found the biggest issue was that there was some lack of maintenance, primarily within the canal, that was posing some challenges for the long-term viability. So LeBlanc Canal has enough capacity for existing and future flows, but it's relatively shallow. And if any of you have been walking alongside it, you'll notice cattails, you'll notice vegetation, and basically what can happen over time is that vegetation will grow and die, and you'll see a general filling in of the channel. So main output of the study here was to look at just cleaning and improving and monitoring those channels. There were some flood complaints. Some of you may have been around on council 3 years ago. There were some flood complaints to the west and to the north of Beaumont in the existing areas. So we did have a look into those. Unfortunately, a lot of this is natural. The natural channels around Beaumont are relatively shallow. There's really not much we can do. If there are any sort of intermediate land uses like that are not necessarily going all the way to post-development, those need to consider those existing conditions and design accordingly. Long term, you're going to see lots of these issues go away as development pushes out and introduces modern drainage systems that generally will convey the stormwater away in a more efficient manner. All right, and now you're going to hear from me about the recommended projects. So this is for all systems. We sat down with your staff and we did some prioritization. So this is it's an order of priority, not an order of system. So first of all, we are recommending that the main pump house upgrades be actioned relatively soon. It is if you were to lose main pump house, your staff would most definitely be scrambling. Might be a matter of a day you'd have before I'm not sure what you'd have to be looking at backup generators or something if the electrical supply went down. Following that, that regional water supply commission feed that I talked about, that fill line to St. Vital, that's the next important upgrade. Then the Township Road 510. I have some better slides for these that show some pictures so you have a better handle on what these are. Township Road 510 sanitary main twinning to support Larev, that inflow and infiltration mitigation, the Centerville high pressure and issues alternative study, and then the Regional Wastewater Commission sewer twinning. So these are our near-term upgrades, and then there'll also be some medium-term, 5-year plus upgrades that we're recommending. So main pump house upgrades, here's some dollars and cents for you. So the electrical upgrades are the highest priority. So basically, yeah, the main pump house can only run 3 of its 5 pumps on its own right now. And the service is old. So these services this is needed right away. Ultimately, there's main pump upgrades to support the improvements, existing fire capacity and support future growth. This regional fill line is not going to be a cheap item, as you can see. This is definitely one we want to explore cost sharing opportunities with the commission and we'll have to see how that shakes out. This is required to support continued growth within Beaumont and to allow us to expand the Vitala Reservoir. In addition to the actual commission supply feed upgrades, there will be upgrades to Vitala Reservoir itself, just to the piping, because they're basically having a new pipe coming into the reservoir. So there will be some changes to the internal plumbing there. And ultimately down the line, we're going to need to do some pump upgrades to support that future growth. Here's the figure I promised you earlier. So Larev is building a new sanitary lift station as part of the development up there. That lift station is going to discharge into a force main up 50th, down 50th Street, depending how you think about it, and then into a planned wastewater sewer on Township 510 that goes east and then dives down into Dansereau and ties into the existing sewers down there. So this is required to support growth and is necessary. This will seem like a smaller item to you, but it is also important. So we need to look at this high pressure issues alternative study, figure out exactly what needs to be done with Centerville in that separate pressure zone. And then inflow and infiltration mitigation. We are thinking this will be, we're going to start with a smaller number and then the $300,000 per year. And then the idea is we're going to ramp up maybe to closer to $500,000 per year. That is something that could be adjusted as time goes on. Likely we'll try and partner it up with your neighborhood renewal program. This is important for all the reasons I listed. It's important to support growth. It's important to prevent flooding. And it's likely that it will also save you money down the road in terms of commission fees that you pay. And then the regional commission trunk sewer upgrades, not a small price tag either. Once again, we feel this is something that will have cost sharing opportunities with the Regional Wastewater Commission. And important to note that the I&I mitigation I mentioned earlier could well delay or eliminate parts of this project's, large portions of this project. So again, do the I&I please, is maybe one of my takeaways. Moving on farther term. So we got the Vitala Reservoir expansion. That's coming in 5 years or so. That's to support that future growth I talked about. We're looking at a second transmission water main between Maine and St. Vital. So that's not a fill line. That is water. That's a water main to get water out into the surrounding communities as we grow and expand Vital. Once we've actually determined what Centerville will look like, we then need to actually action the upgrades. That cost is high level. That's going to be refined hopefully through that study. And then finally, we have those 3 wastewater trunk upgrades that we discussed within City of Beaumont's proper sewers. That, like the trunk upgrades, depending on how we do with the I&I mitigation, we may or may not need to actually undertake that. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the thorough presentation, and more complicated to less complicated meant just more money as we go, it looks like. So important conversations to have around, you know, what's beneath our feet and just helping to understand what the liability is of these systems. So thank you very much for that. Looking for some questions, and my board is lighting up here. So Councillor Monkoff Swain, you're up first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks for the overall the presentation, all the background information. Couple questions. On the water system, curious if you could just talk to us a bit about redundancy. So we have the one line that comes in and, my fear and is, something happens to that, you talked about ability right there. So are you able to share the thoughts around redundancy and how we're looking to address that in Beaumont?
So the reservoir main reservoir does have a backup generator that is there. So if the electrical power service were to go down, it would have a backup generator. It wouldn't be ideal because I believe it's a diesel generator, and they would base your staff, Beaumont administration or a contractor would need to continually be gassing that up as needed. So I don't think it's a matter of absolute critic. Yeah, it's important to deal with it.
Sure.
Is it something you need to pay? And staff have actually already undertaking this under a separate project. So is it something that we need to fix tomorrow? No. Is it something that needs to be fixed in the next 3 to 6 months? Yes.
Right.
Sort of.
Yeah, and that speaks to at the pump house themselves. I'm also curious around, and maybe this is more of a question for the Water Commission itself. Obviously, the mayor's not here who sits on that. I'd be curious an update around the timing on what they were looking at. So is that, I don't know when you guys meet next, but.
Yeah, I can add a little bit of color on that. I've been the alternate on the Capital Region Southwest Water Services Commission for a number of years. And I do know that there is an approved line to work on that redundancy into Beaumont. So currently we have the one line coming in from the west. There's an approved line that is going to be coming down 50th Street. It is in the midterm capital plan, and from budget to budget, it has moved around a little bit. At a high level, that's what I know and can share on that level of redundancy. So the line has been approved by the water supplier, who is EPCOR. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it'll be worth as we bring this sort of stuff forward. I know we get those monthly regional updates in today's consent agenda. It'll be good to maybe dive in and see if we can get an update on the plan for that. So I'm looking at you. I know it's not your job, but we'll get
I'm on
there.
the receiving end here. I'll make some notes. Yeah.
There you go. Big picture question, and maybe for administration. So Steve mentioned that this isn't the sexy stuff that you come on council to do, right? But probably the most important, right, to make sure that our infrastructure is there. A couple of years ago, I think we put $1 million or so into actually taking a look at the integrity of the system. I'm just curious if you could speak to, I assume that process evolved to where we are today. There was some fancy camera work that was happening. I wonder if you could just speak to that at a high level around what that project was and the results and how that leads us to here today.
Yeah, Putnam, you're up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through to Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Yes, there was camera work that occurred on our sanitary system. And funny enough, Josh is actually heading a project that we have this year to further analyze those results and give us more appropriate recommendations. So they were analyzed at a high level, probably a year or two ago. And now Josh is actually diving into more specific recommendations because there are some pipes that are calcified to the point of almost closing up. So I'll actually hand it back to Josh to give you some more details on that.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, it's not, actually, as we're handling it, we do have a task separately where we're looking at that CCTV data. There are multiple issues with wastewater system. The I&I issue I talked about is kind of canary in a coal mine sort of scenario. If you go down into the pipes, you'll see lots more down there. So there are calcite crystals down there that basically are a result of the infiltrating groundwater. In some places, it was so bad that we couldn't actually get camera equipment through. So we likely also have damaged ability to convey flow. There's also a lot of places where, those pipes are in poor condition, they're cracking, and then this gets very specific, but the service saddles from the houses are not well joined into the pipes. It looks like many of them were probably installed poorly, 50, 70 years ago. Many of them appear to have been installed with a hammer, smashed the pipe and stuck it in there and hope for the best. So yeah, all that stuff over time is causing issues for your sewer. And what we're doing right now is we are undertaking a classification, a grading of the sewer. Basically looking at the worst areas. We're looking at criticality of the sewers, which are the most important sewers. And then we're giving administration a prioritized list of, okay, these are the sewers that are the most important that you must look at right away. And yes, so it is
Yeah,
a
maybe-
process.
I'll ask you to be careful with your words here. You know, I think people hear what you're saying and they're going to panic, right? You use words like cracking and bashing things into the pipes, or maybe I'll ask you to rethink your answer here around this, where we're at in terms of the integrity of our system here. So maybe just provide a bit more color on kind of, sure, there are things that we need to do, we need to look at. But I'll just invite you to provide a bit of a synopsis of where you
Sure.
think we are with our
I think you
infrastructure.
got me a bit excited there, so
Yeah.
apologies. The sewer from a conveyance capacity is currently adequate. Really, the only issues we're running across is in the big trunks leaving the town. That's where we're seeing the backups. Within the local sewers, I'm not very concerned about the overall capacity. So once again, you talked about criticality and when you need to deal with these things. These are not tomorrow items. They're not 6-month items. This is something that we're looking at resolving over a 5 to 15 year sort of time scale. There's a couple pipes that require more attention on that, maybe more within that 5-year time scale, and there's a great deal more that are they should be looked at. They're not, but they're not. This is not a
Sure.
It's not on the same order of magnitude as the other issues we've discussed today.
Yeah, no, perfect. And so, you know, what I'm taking from this is, you know, we're just like everywhere else. We've got issues that we need to manage. We've got this master plan and we're going to budget for it. So appreciate that. The one thing I'll flag is, you know we're going to have a conversation broadly around offsite levies and the impact here. You know, our last budget they were sitting at like 1.7 million and we drew 300,000 for them. So down to 1.4. So clearly that's not going to solve all the challenges we've got here. And we need to start looking at it because a lot of the pressure that's coming in is through these new neighborhoods, right? That's putting a lot of the pressure on. So yeah, I'll leave that offsite levies comment for further discussion of budget, but do appreciate the comprehensive overview here of what we've got ahead of us. And as it mentions in the report, we'll address these through the budget. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for the comments, and that's a good segue to a comment I wanted to make just around budget. You know, we have budget coming up and council has not been yet presented with the proposed budget from administration, but what we can know and assume is that the items have been prioritized around infrastructure, you know, in the way that administration sees fit. And, you know, when we get those numbers, we can have a look at them. So although there were a lot of numbers thrown at us in the slides here tonight, you know, diving into them might be a better thing to do at budget. So I'll just, you know, if there are succinct questions, council has her own numbers and stuff, fire away. Otherwise, let's really get into it at budget once we see what's proposed by administration. So Councillor McCook, you're up next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my one kind of higher level question around some of the numbers are, you know, we say that they're high level estimates only for planning purposes. How accurate do we feel these are? You know, we're looking at 5 million, 1.8, 50,000 for a study, 1 million for design and implementation. Are we fairly accurate? Do we think we could come back with double?
It's generally my intention to estimate on the higher side with a lot of these numbers. I find conversations go easier if the numbers come down as we move along. So we are carrying contingency in these numbers that are presented to you. It's fairly healthy. Wouldn't be surprised if you saw 30% sort of numbers coming down. Most of the estimates we're using here, so we haven't physically inspected a lot of the infrastructure we're talking about. We inspected main pump house because it became so critical. Most of them are unit-based estimates. So we're doing a meter sewer and we have a standard number that we apply based upon the size and the depth of that sewer. When it comes time, maybe there's a utility line on top of that sewer that makes it harder and raises the cost. Maybe there's another project side by side with it that we can align that with. Maybe we reduce the cost that way. So there's a lot of different ways that this could shake out once we get into the details.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, the estimates were definitely, I was wondering if we had contingency costs in there, so thank you for clarifying that. Some of the points have cost sharing opportunities through the wastewater commission will be explored. Can you kind of just speak a little bit as to how likely the cost sharing opportunities are with them, and kind of what have other municipalities done and what did their cost sharing look like?
I think I'm hesitant to answer that question. It's hard to forecast how that will go. There haven't been a lot of large expansions like this. It's not very common. So even something that happened 5 or 10 years ago may not be representative of how this negotiation works out.
Mm-hmm.
The commission ultimately will look at the expenditure versus the value they get back from it. So they sell water, or you pay them for their wastewater to take your wastewater. There's a profit margin on that, and they might look at that and see, try and find a dollars and cents to make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more question. So issue number 3, one of the points was there's no capacity to accommodate further growth in the city. Can you kind of clarify further growth? Does that include the current neighborhoods we're bringing on, or further beyond that?
I think sorry, was that the wastewater one? Wastewater system?
Number 3, pumping capacity.
Yes. So right now, the REV is constrained. So what we can do is we can bring on single family houses, but we cannot bring on basically the denser and the higher value the usage, the more fire flow we need. So the REV is able to grow, able to build out with a single family, but there's also commercial proposed along the 50th Street corridor going up north. Right now, you can't bring that on because we do not have fire flow capacity. So when I was speaking to development constraints, that's the main development constraint that we're seeing right now, is that we can't bring on those higher density uses until we make those upgrades.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate all the work that has gone into this. Obviously, as Councillor Munchoff-Swain highlighted, definitely something that we need to take seriously and look into, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of it at budget. So thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Next up will be Councillor Barnhart. I am just gonna sneak one question in here around the sorry, I lost my page here, around the high pressure study.
Mm-hmm.
And just what is the timeline to do that study? Is it something that's done in a season, or is it a multi-year study? Or
no, it's not a multi-year study. It's 6 months to a year max, probably more on the 6 month side, I'd say. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, no, that's very good. Councillor Barnhart, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it, Joshua. It was very helpful. My question, though, is probably more for Ms. Grewal about the maybe next steps and process is what's in my head. I understand we take it to capital, but I was interested in what you said about the 2018 and beyond, the master plan, and what status now does that master plan have? Because I realize this is information based on growth. We didn't anticipate quite the impact that it has had. So what I'm wondering is whether the master plan is being redone or tweaked, or how do you phrase that, or how do you share that with us? And then secondary to that, just to kind of speed things up, because I know we're going to be revisiting this again at budget time, but just would that revision of that master plan then be something that would go to the Water Commission for them to be aware of, so that we can move ahead in the future with the cost sharing?
Administration, you're up.
Great. So to Deputy Mayor through to Councillor Barnhart. Yeah, great questions. So the 2018 master plan, I don't know if there's a formal process to, repeal it or replace it with this current one. So this current 2023 utilities and stormwater management master plan is our new master plan. So this will be the one we use. The 2018 one is now considered obsolete. And going forward, our next steps immediately are going to be to propose some things for budget as Deputy Mayor referenced. There will be some things coming this year for sure. And then within the 5-year horizon, you'll continue to see projects that are in this master plan. In terms of the commission involvement, actually, we've already reached out to them, to Water Commission and Sanitary Commission. We've also shared our new master plan with them. And we're going to start having those discussions about some of that cost sharing that was mentioned. So for that feed line extension for water and for sanitary for that commission line 20 to determine where those are on their master plans and if there is opportunity to cost share. Those will be some of the questions that we ask.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for
Thank
clarifying
you.
that for me.
Thank you. Right now, I'm going to invite the CAO, Mike Schwartz, to make a couple comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Van Newkirk, Deputy Mayor, and the rest of the council. And just further to what Poonam was saying, none of these findings are a real surprise to us. With the age of our infrastructure, the type of soil, the type of systems we have, we are experiencing much faster growth than anticipated. But this is the purpose of this master plan, is to gather this data, to collect this information, and now to do the planning that you just suggested, Councillor Barnhart. So I think that was a very good point you made, Councillor Monkoff-Swain, that it's not the sky is falling. It's time to just maintain the assets, which are typically not that sexy. So, and Josh lives in this stuff every day, so he gets really excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah, you betcha. Planning is the way that this has to happen. Councillor Talonboss, you're up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Also, thank you, Joshua, for the presentation. Really appreciate it. A lot of good and valuable information there. I just had a couple of questions, more so, I guess, on the steady trickle line that you referred to, I guess the supply line, let's call it. Is there any way in the interim to increase, I guess, the amount of volume that we receive so that we can continuously transfer from our main pump house to Saint Vital, or is that not possible just based on the individual feed that we have?
It's actually not. So the fill line itself is not the constraint. The constraint is your own water pipes within Beaumont and the demands, because basically Vital, think of Vital as it's only got one pipe going, and that water can either go into the reservoir or out of the reservoir. It can't do both at the same time. So in the daytime, when it's feeding demand, it's emptying, and it can't fill at the same time. So really, it only can fill at night when demand in the system goes down. And essentially, it's already kind of running at maximum, and they're finding they can't fill it over a single night. And so, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So things like a booster station wouldn't serve a purpose to help deliver.
It would be very difficult, especially with Beaumont's pressure issues. It'd be very difficult to you can increase the pressure and that would increase the fill rate, but then you'd be running up, raising pressures in the system, which is not recommended.
Okay, perfect. Just one other question too, just obviously throughout other municipalities, it's not uncommon for a third party to take on some of this infrastructure work and build a contract so that they're billing you at a rate to maintain it as well. Is that something you've explored or you've had experience with, and potentially something that you would recommend as opposed to all this upfront cost for the municipality themselves?
As in establishing utility like EPCOR?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a very in-depth item that I would not hazard. I don't want you'd have to really consider the costs and benefits of that. Off the top of my head, I'm hesitant to give a straight answer on that.
Big picture stuff, right?
Yeah, it's big picture stuff, right? It's been successful for some. I'm told it has not been successful for others. Okay. So it's not I don't think it's a guaranteed win. It should be something approached with caution and
a lot of information.
A lot of information.
That's
yes.
right. You betcha. No, that's really good. Yeah, thank you for those questions.
Steve, if I may, just one more, just in terms of the electrical upgrade, I know you had mentioned that our generator or backup power is an old diesel generator. Is that something that we're gonna be looking at upgrading with the electrical in the proposal that was there, or?
Not in the immediate one, no.
Okay.
Down the road, it will probably need to be upgraded as part of those pump upgrades that we talked about. And that's priced in with those numbers that we've given you. So it's so the answer is no, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I don't have any more questions on the mic. So, you know, one of the things that I know is you can't manage what you can't measure, right? And so we start by doing an evaluation of things. We make a plan, we put a budget in place, and then we get going, right? So budget is where we're going to see how those priorities shake out alongside everything else that we have to do. So thank you very much for your comments. So Councillor Penrod, closing comment or question?
I was just wondering if maybe you can give me some direction, Deputy Mayor, if this would be a question for Joshua or for administration. So some of the work sounds like it will impact St. Vital neighborhood. And they've obviously been through 3 years now of neighborhood renewal. And so we maybe missed the opportunity to twin up, for example, adding some new fire hydrants in there. It seems, so the first question that I have is, to what extent will the proposed new line to fill the St. Vital station impact St. Vital neighborhood? And then the bigger picture question is, how do we manage that when a new plan comes on stream outside of the existing work that's already happening with neighborhood renewal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'll push this one back to Ms. Gruel. Take a stab at, please.
Thank you to Deputy Mayor through to Councillor Penrod. So great question. Obviously, St. Vital has been through a lot the last few years, and we don't want to, further aggravate that. The line to St. Vital would likely be directionally drilled underneath 50th Ave. It wouldn't go into any local roads or communities. Of course, surrounding communities may have some impacts, but that line should not directly impact them. And once we do the detailed design, we'll get further details on what potential impacts may be.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great question. Thank you very much. Seeing no further requests to speak, just looking for a member of council to accept this report as information. Councillor Barnhart.
I'd be pleased to make the motion that the October 30th, 2023 Utilities and Stormwater Management Master Plan report be received for information.
Thank you. And now that the motion has been made, any debate on the motion? Seeing no request to speak, I invite you to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Josh, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on, next item on our agenda is number 6.5, the community events public engagement and administration. Over to you. I believe Mr. Suter will be presenting.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Paul Suter, Director of Recreation. Pleased to be with you this evening to have a brief report on community engagement around civic events. This stems from a council direction in July, where administration was to look at public engagement on the city's various community events, with identifying opportunities to improve them, enhance them, different options, make them more inclusive, that sort of thing. That was the direction. I was quite pleased that we had the opportunity to discuss this as something administration, the events team had been looking at and discussing internally for the last year or so. Little background. Currently, the city delivers 7 annual events. They're planned by the events team within the Recreation Department. The Community Events Committee has had a very strong role in the past over a number of years as both a volunteer capacity as well as an advisory capacity to the city when it comes to planning the events. As we've grown and evolved, having some full-time staff come in, that role has really been taken over by the events team. And with the decision to sunset that committee at the end of the year, any advisory capacity with regards to this topic would fall to the Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee. So when we looked at this, what kind of options, community engagement is obviously a very broad topic and conversation. It aligns well with one of the pillars in council strategic plan with empowering citizens to connect and collaborate with civic government. And we spoke internally about how to go about doing this. We looked at some people that specialize with this sort of work and landed with two options for council to consider. The first option is in line with what was recommended back in our Places in Play recreation master plan, which was adopted in 2020. In that, as part of one of the recommendations, there was many in there, of course, but one of them was the development of a events and festival and event strategy. And that's something that we clearly do not have currently. The way it's working now is our team plans the same events every year. Obviously, each event will differ a little bit due to costs, pretending with a vendor, maybe a different idea that comes through the process. But at the end of the day, we continue to do more or less the same things. We understand they're quite well received. Gathering the data on this is important, and it's something we've been discussing for the last 12 months. That's why we were pleased that council gave us this direction to look at this. I think data gathering is important for us to determine what events are popular, are they growing, are they staying static, and how do we bring in new ideas and new events? And this is where we're kind of facing for the future as we continue to grow. So the first option with this strategy, it not only covers the community engagement component, but it looks at how we're operating overall. It looks at, should the city be delivering these events in its current form? Should we be partnering on some of them? Should we be offloading them to some other organization potentially to run? As well as, how do you gauge the merits, the return on investment, if you will, for the tax dollars that go into planning and running an event? As well as, how do you introduce a new idea? So if someone comes along to us now with an idea for an event, where does that fit? We have a budget set for the year based on what we've currently and annually done. There's no capacity typically fiscally to add another event. And if we do that, then that means we're going to be looking at what do we drop. But we don't have the data, the metrics to make that decision historically. This strategy would look at everything that goes into that and then set us up with a process for the future. So when we get that resident or organization coming to us, we have an evaluation process that everyone is clear on how this will go, who plays what role in that. So that would be option one. I have a price tag of about $40,000 to outsource that work. Now, that's a very high level, high end number based on doing everything that you could possibly want, most likely, and talking with a couple of people that do this work. Of course, I don't have the scope defined at this point. Should we do that as a one-time project? We hope to do it. We were hoping to do it in 23, but obviously the budget wouldn't allow that to do it with the existing budget we have. So that number is the very high end. And again, we can reduce the scope, or sorry, reduce the number potentially depending on what the scope, where that lands. So it's premature for me to say we can reduce it, but that was the very high level number I think that we would want to throw out there. Option two would be a community engagement and then a subsequent report, what we heard report that would be brought back to administration to evaluate and then subsequently presented to council. That lands you where you want to hear from the residents on what they like, what they don't like, what they'd like to see. And we then have to figure out where do we go from there. So it would be very valuable to us, but it doesn't paint the whole pathway for the future. So it's a lot cheaper, obviously. 16,000 was the price that was thrown at that for that work as a one-time project. In alignment with the master plan, we'd obviously prefer option one, but it is really, they're both on the table for council's consideration at this point as one-time projects in the future, whether they be 24 or beyond. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Deputy Mayor. I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think you spelled out where those options are at right now and what option one brings, excuse me, and what option two brings. Just looking for any comments or questions from members of council. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, administration, for the information on that and the options. I'm just wondering about the timing. So it's going through my head is that there's a lot of events we kind of count on that happen at certain times a year, and option one, while I like thinking it through and doing it strategically, I'm a little worried about how long that might take and what happens in the meantime. So if you could speak to whether, I know the council has asked you to come back at this time to give us this information. And I'm just wondering about what's going to happen in the meantime. So if you could speak to the timeline, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councilor Barnhart. Yeah, I think we'd be looking at about 2 months for the engagement piece, and then maybe a month from there. So all in, it comes back within 6 months for an option one to be complete. I don't think that really impacts 24's planning at this point. We would carry on as normal. If it was something we would do the work in 24 with the eye on, that would anything from there would be adopted probably beyond 24. It wouldn't affect the planning for 24 and the events.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Is the funding to do this in the budget this year? Or would we have to supplement that next year?
Administration is considering this as a one-time project for 24, but I can't speak to it this evening, Councilor Barnhart, if it's going to remain there for something for council to see. Yeah.
Thank you. Just looking to see if any other members of council have any questions or comments around this item. I believe administration will be looking for some direction on option one or option two tonight. So any further questions, comments surrounding this? Councilor McCook.
Thank you. Councilor Barnhart hit some of my questions, so thank you. I'm obviously a big supporter of community events, and this is something I had brought forward. Obviously, we want to ensure that we do things right. So I think that looking at a complete framework, especially as our city grows to what it is currently, is something that is very much needed, especially to kind of look at, are we doing all the events that we should be doing? And as Mr. Suter said, should we be partnering with or kind of passing on some of the events to other groups? So what does that look like? I think if we don't kind of go this option, then we're piecemealing it as we kind of go along, and just hope that we're kind of doing the right thing. Public engagement is really important, as well as we haven't really done public engagement on our community events, so we don't really know where we sit with that. So I would be leaning more towards option one, I guess, just considering where the funds are coming from, I guess, is more to Councilor Barnhart's point. Just wondering where that is, but that's my comments.
Thank you for sharing with council where your head is at on option one or option two. We'll look for some direction and maybe some consensus from council around option one or option two. Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
Yeah, maybe to speed it up, I'm prepared to move a motion on option one and we can chat on that.
Yep. Administration, would you be able to put up a motion to move option number one, please? Sorry, it's not letting me. You're blinking, but it's not letting me turn you on.
I can just make one up.
There, we got it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just, as this originally was received for information, I'm just typing up right now. And I'm also working with another counselor right now on a possible other motion. So I'm just
Sounds good.
need a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll just leave you a few minutes here, and that's just fine. Yeah, it's up to you guys. For those of you watching and waiting diligently at home, we're just, administration is just working on some wording here, so just be patient with us. Thank you. Just looking to administration, should we take a 5-minute recess and collect our thoughts? Okay, thanks. Let's do that, please. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back. There, no, I'm sorry, live now. Welcome back to the Monday, October 30th, City of Beaumont Regular Council meeting. We'll continue back on item number 6.5, community events, public engagement. And looking for any members of council who have comments or any motions to put forward on this event to declare. Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, I think we've got a motion ready to go.
Thank you.
So I'd like to move that a one-pager for developing a festival and event strategy as recommended in the Our Places and Play Master Plan. Action item 2.C.3, page 131 of that master plan, and in alignment with option 1 of the October 30th, 2023 report, community events, public engagement, be included in the upcoming 2024 budget deliberation.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments or debate from members of council? Seeing none, I invite the vote on that motion, please. And that motion moves unanimously. Thank you very much. And seeing that motion carries us through item 6.5. 6.6 was included in the consent agenda and now brings it down to item 6.7, motion following notice, Councillor Van Newkirk, North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. So I will speak up to this item here. I made a motion at the September 26th council meeting that read that the funding to become a municipal partner of the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance be included as part of the 2024 budget deliberations. And tonight I'm looking for support from members of council to have a one-pager completed to be considered in the budget deliberations. What we heard on the 26th was the cost associated with becoming a municipal partner for the Watershed Alliance was based upon 50 to 60 cents per capita. So it's about a $13,000 ask approximately. And tonight, basically what I'm asking is that this document be prepared so that it could be considered at budget. So I'm not going to speak to the merits or my opinion on it. I'm just simply asking for support that this be provided with budget for consideration along the group of items that we're going to be considering. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any councillors that have any comments or questions on that motion following notice. Thank you. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I supported coming back to budget. I do remember we had not received a recommendation to fund it from the administration. So I think it's fair that that information be shared again with the new councillors as well as with us again at budget time. And we have the opportunity to look at it in relationship with other things that we are partnering with and doing. Water, of course, is very important. And I support if this is going to help us move in that direction. So I'd like to have more time to consider that. But I appreciate you bringing it forward. So I would vote in favor of it.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
Just more of a question for admin. I think it's pretty straightforward. just in terms of acquiring all the information needed to get this. They've presented to us before. I think it's pretty straightforward, but just wanted to check on the amount of time and effort that it's going to take to do this. Yeah.
Thumbs up from administration, so I think we're good there. Any other comments or questions on this notice of motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. And that moves unanimously. Thank you for the support on that motion. At this point, we'll move down to 7.1. It was considered in the consent agenda. And now we'll move to item 8, councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. And I do believe we have a councillor inquiry coming tonight. Councillor Barnhart, is that correct? Thank you for the heads up on that. No problem. Does any other councillors have any inquiries, responses, or reports to bring forward this evening at all? Seeing none, we'll just give administration a little bit of time to work away here. And again, just for those at home, just be patient for a couple minutes. Thank you.
Just too busy putting out her Halloween decorations to be able to get the heads up in. So
Pretty great Halloween decorations.
we got to go buy her ups. You just have to.
Councillor Barnhart, you're up.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for being late with the request to draft that up. I would like the administration to provide information on the following. Is there time, if there is time this year, to consider adding a lighted winter tree to our new Centreville Square? I assume that that inquiry would mean that you'd come back with an answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Barnhart. As per our meeting procedures, administration will answer that through email, and then it'll be included in the next agenda. And your answer will come before the next scheduled regular council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there any other councillors' inquiries, responses, or reports? Seeing none, we will move on to the CAO update, and CAO Schwartz, you are up.
All right, thank you very much. I got a number of items here and they'll pop up on the screen. And then for our new counselors, they'll go in the agenda package of the minutes as well. The Community Health Needs Assessment Survey is now live at beaumont.ab.ca/921. And promotional materials are being distributed to residents and to our website where they can get information. Residents can also go to our website to get information. This Community Health Needs Assessment is a very important data gathering process for our community, and it's going to tell us what we want to learn, what are the wants and needs as part of an overall health assessment we're doing for the city of Beaumont. So does it need a walk-in clinic? Does it need something else? Or does it need preventative? Does it need more community health? So this survey is extremely important, and we urge all of our residents to take part in it. The 10 gig broadband project continues to advance. We're almost at the end of the construction for this project. If you recall, construction was scheduled to end next September. We're on schedule to have all of our houses in a situation, all of our buildings in a situation that they will be offered service by the end of this year. So construction will effectively end, although come next spring, there'll be some cleanup and some reworking of the lands. The ribbon cutting is set up for November 14th for council and Alberta Broadband Network and Primus, who is a distributor, and a number of other elected officials and dignitaries from both the province and our regional municipalities. This is huge for us. Represents a almost $220 million investment in this Edmonton region by Meridian. It's a start, and you're going to see this Alberta broadband network fan out across the region. And Alberta broadband network started in the city of Beaumont, and that is where its head office is located or will be located. Infrastructure, talking about Centreville, concrete plaza walkways have been completed along with the landscaping. I didn't know you could do landscaping at this time of year, but apparently you can. The shade structures and the furniture will arrive and be installed in November. The pillars are going up right away. The shade structures will be set up just to make sure they fit, and then they'll immediately be taken down because they don't have any snow load available. You can see we were out. We just happened to be out by coincidence, and they were laying out the metal plating for the logo, and it just looks fantastic. So that's going to be etched into that centerpiece. The fire feature element is still in its design. We're looking at options, what makes the most sense for our community and from a cost perspective as well. Some of the elements may carry forward, but they've got the trees in, the grass. You're going to see the pillars go up. The lighting is all wired in. So you may see some stuff happen in 2024, but this thing is turning into a beautiful gathering spot. St. Patel neighborhood rehab and the alley renewal, it's almost complete. There's reached substantial completion. There's some remediation that needs to be done and some deficiencies that will be looked at, and that may wander off into the spring. But for the folks in that area, and I've said this before, thank you very much. That was a huge project this year, and I hope you enjoy the fruits of that inconvenience in the future. Range Road 214, 510, and the 50th Avenue overlay is complete, and is complete with the painting was done last week. Obviously, there are some minor deficiencies, and those will be upgraded or fixed. Crosswalk lights at 50th Street and Home Hardware. I don't know if you noticed, but they're now a full stop. So that's an upgrade for 50th Street, and obviously a busy intersection, a lot of pedestrian traffic. And the worst line that I share every year is their snow clearing and removal equipment's ready to go. So it means that winter is around the corner. I did have a chance to go look at our new plow truck yesterday or last Friday, I think it was. Yeah, Friday. Really nice addition. And if you recall, we also added another one last year. So we will be out in full force when needed. And hopefully that's not too May. 2024 operating capital budgets will be presented to council November 14th, and then council will begin the public workshops November 29th, 30th, and December 1st. So we've got some work to do, and we've been talking about that, and admin has done a lot of preparation, and we're confident that we will give council what they need going into that workshop. November is Prevention of Family Violence Month. November 14th is partnering with the RCMP or our FCSS and the RCMP Victim Services to deliver a family violence prevention awareness presentation at the library. You don't need to register, you just need to show up. There's also a drive for winter outerwear. So if you have any gently used coats or new, you can drop them off at the Circle Thrift Store. And the Beaumont Nisku Christmas Elves campaign launched on November 12th, or launches on November 12th. Legend Legal by-election concluded October 23rd. We talked about the advance polls and voting. There was over 2,100 voters. That's outstanding. We talked about this earlier. LLNS wants to thank everybody who participated in the election process. Who went from volunteers, different staff members. I think you only had to hire like one person, three extra people. Staff from different parts of the organization jumped in. Again, we thanked all the candidates involved. It was a very good by-election and was run incredibly well. So thank you, LLNS. And I know, Shalane, you won't take credit for it, but you did a lot of the heavy lifting, so thank you. Recruitment of public members for the various boards and committees will begin shortly. Process includes several improvements arising from the past years. The application period will be open until December 10th. We encourage anyone interested in these opportunities to keep an eye open for information on our website, social media, and the local paper. During the evening, October 31st, 2023, the fire department and the CPOs will be driving around Beaumont handing out candy to trick-or-treaters. So happy Halloween, everybody. Have a safe Halloween. And what that picture you're looking at is something that came out of our archives, and our operations staff built this about 10 years ago. Still recognized in one of the best accomplishments of our operations folks. So happy Halloween, everybody, and have a safe night.
Looks like there's room for a logo on that hard hat, so. Yeah. Right on. Thank you, CEO, for the thorough update this evening. Next item on our agenda is item 10, notices of motion. Are any councillors bringing forward notices of motion tonight? Counselor Monkoff Swain, you're up.
Thank you and appreciate all the work from legislative services as always to help me word this appropriately. At the November 14th, 2023 regular council meeting, I will move that by the end of the first quarter of 2024, administration provide a report on options for improving the online registration process for community programming, as well as options for increasing and improving access to swimming lessons.
Thank you, Councillor Monkoff Swain, for bringing that notice of motion forward. Any other notices of motion from members of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11 that was taken care of in the consent agenda, which brings us on to item 12, adjournment. So I declare the Monday, October 30th, 2023 council meeting adjourned at 7:41 p.m. Thank you.